All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, and thank you. This is the Telerik R1 2019 release webinar. It's a brand new year, so Happy New Year, and we are excited to bring you a big release to kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. My name is Sam Basu, and
I'm Ed Charbonneau.
all right, so we are both developer advocates here at Progress. We mostly focus on the Telerik side of the family. You see our Twitter handles if you need to get hold of us during and after the webinar. You like this format, so you can see us live on video. You can see how gorgeous Ed looks.
Of course.
We are actually live today from our global headquarters here in cloudy, cold, but still beautiful, Boston, Massachusetts. You only see the two of us here, but we do actually have a small army of folks supporting us. So this is your opportunity to ask us questions. We are going to cover a lot of different products over the next 1 hour, so we may not be able to cover every feature. So ask us questions like, does this feature do this? Or what's the roadmap like for this product? So we have engineers, we have PMs who are on the call with us, so please ask away questions so we can help you. All right, so speaking about questions and keeping kind of the communication going, there is a Q&A panel on the webinar if you want to ask us questions that way, but it's better if you are on Twitter, keep it public so we can have a breadcrumb of the communication and the conversation we have. So use the hashtag #HeyTelerik, and if you have to run for a meeting or you get interrupted by some means, we are recording this in full HD, so you can relive this. We're going to post this webinar as soon as we can on our YouTube channels. Now, here is another reason why you should be asking questions, because we are giving away a pretty cool prize. I think it's a Holy Stone quadcopter. I like the fact that you don't have to like put on a goggles. You have to fiddle with your phone. They give you a full-on gamepad, so you can fly your drone.
Do we get one of those?
Yeah, I mean, we can be judged and we can ask the best question.
We don't get one.
No, we don't
That's
get
not
one.
fair.
Yeah, but you guys can, so please fire away your questions, okay? All right, so we have been doing this for a while. 15, 17 years now. We are building modern UI for .NET developers. We are trying to make developers successful, as well as us being successful as well in the apps that we make. Things are changing. Things have been evolving. Here's one of the slides from Microsoft. I mean, .NET isn't your old school .NET anymore. It's different .NETs for different types of apps you're building. Framework, .NET Core, Mono, and .NET can today power a lot of different things. Desktop gaming, you see ML.NET and AI and IoT, all of that. You get a choice of all the different types of editors that you want to use on Windows and Mac. So no matter how you use .NET, we want to give you sharp and polished and performant tools that can light up your UI for your apps and ship your apps faster. A few more things before we begin, just to kind of showcase the fact that we are in this. I mean, this is not just business for us. We live and breathe .NET. .NET Foundation, as most of you all know, it is the independent org that kind of nurtures open source development on .NET. We are big fans of it. We have contributed quite a bit to it. Off late, they did switch to an open membership model, so if you're a contributor, you can be a part of the family. And we are in this together with Microsoft and with everybody else, so we want to make sure the future of .NET is bright. And we will do all the right things.
And this was the launch of the corporate sponsorship, and we were first in, along with these other companies that you see here.
So again, we are in this, so the future of .NET is exactly what we envision it to be, and it's going to be good. A few more things. Again, we have very, very close partnerships with Microsoft. I mean, we are friends with most of the .NET team and the ASP.NET and the Xamarin teams. So we get bits before most other people do, and we want to make sure things work as early as possible. So Visual Studio 2019, it's out on preview. It's going to come early this year, and we can't officially say everything is working, but it's working because it's still in preview, but all of our bits and everything that you see today, it's all working on VS 2019, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so give VS 2019 a try. You can do it on Windows as well as on Mac, and you can play around with our bits. Okay, so the Telerik side of the family, we have been making .NET UI for just about any app that you can think of, desktop, web, and mobile. We do get to say it's any app, any platform, because really you get to target everything from HoloLens and Surface Hubs, everything on the web. So it's a lot of different things, and that family we are keeping on investing. We also have Kendo UI, which is extremely popular for the JavaScript folks. Folks who use DevCraft, they don't often realize that Kendo UI does actually power a lot of things. Some of the MVC and ASP.NET Core stuff that you're going to see Ed show, those are actually powered by Kendo UI.
Even web forms.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of server-side things, but when it gets spit out on the client side, it is HTML, JavaScript. So you don't have to use JavaScript, you can use the wrappers, but it's all powered by Kendo UI, and it's beautiful, and you can bring in any framework that you want. Angular, React, Vue, it all works, and we build components from the ground up for all of these frameworks. Now, we try doing this in every release. We try to straddle the line between the past and the future. I think today you're going to see us kind of stay on the bleeding edge. Ed's got a big announcement. Unless you're already following us on some of the release announcements, you would have seen it, but he's got something big to show us that's going to be very future-facing.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, doesn't it hurt when people say your desktop applications, if you're an enterprise developer, those are legacy apps? Legacy isn't a good word, right? Because these are desktop apps that are powering your enterprise core business. So why should they not get the love? So with Microsoft and with .NET Core next, you can see how you can kind of modernize your UI and your desktop applications into the new world. So you're going to see us do that past and future as well today. So we got some exciting things to show in the .NET Core 3 side of things with desktop apps. We have been busy. Last year, we had some very big releases. We did conversational UI, which was UI for chatbots, modern chatbots across web, mobile, desktop, you name it. This was the first time we did a UI that was across almost all of our family of products.
Yeah.
We are keeping on investing in it, so that's growing. At the same time, we take a lot of care in how we present our stuff to developers, because we are developers, and if we don't have the right docs, we might as well not make the products. So if you go out to docs.telerik.com, you will see a brand new redesign again. A lot of thought has been put into how we show you the code versus markup, and also feedback.telerik.com. So we don't come up with product roadmaps out of the blue. It's based on what you all tell us. So both of these things have been redone. So take a look, talk to us.
And those two things go hand in hand too. We've received a lot of feedback on our docs, is why we redesigned them yet again, and they look phenomenal this time.
Yep. All right, so moving on to R1 2019 release. Like I said, it's a very big release for us that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the year. We are going to try covering most of the highlights of different products today, but again, in an hour, we won't be able to do justice. So check out blogs.telerik.com. The release actually went out 2 days before, so I'll show you links as to how you can upgrade your bits. But all of our engineering teams and our PMs, we document everything that we have done across all the product lines. So if you head out to blogs.telerik.com, you can see what's new in the product that you are interested in the most, and kind of go from there. So a lot of how-to guides, a lot of documentation on how to use some of these new features, they all live on blogs.telerik.com, and then we point to docs as and when we need to. So all of the things that we are showing today, you can play with it, right? And you're not going to be able to see it unless you get the latest bits. That's the R1 release that went out 2 days back, like I said. So however you use our stuff, you should be able to get the latest bits. If you're going to Telerik.com and just getting your downloads from there, your DLLs, go grab the latest bits. If you're using the control panel, you can get the latest bits. And then if you're using NuGet packages, you will see the NuGet packages. You can roll back anytime you need, but you can see all of the latest bits out there. So play with it, all right? That's the only way you can see all of those things that we are going to show off today. Okay? Now, there are a lot of things we did for R1 release. We are going to dive into every one of these controls, new controls and new things across web, mobile, and desktop. We're going to dive into these things, and also reporting and productivity, because those are important parts of how we developers are successful. So let's not spend too much time on this. Let's actually see some of these things and what they are. But the overall theme of the release is modern UI across all platforms. How can we make developers more productive? Let's push the envelope, let's do future-facing things, but at the same time, let's bring desktop applications to the modern era as well.
Yep.
Yep.
We definitely have some bleeding-edge stuff to talk about.
Yep.
So we want to get to those demos soon.
Absolutely. So for the web, let's have Ed kind of start off. He's going to show off all the new things that we did with ASP.NET Web Forms and MVC and Core, and then, like Steve Jobs used to say, one more thing, one more small thing.
One more announcement in there.
All right, so why don't we let Ed take over here?
So I'm going to talk about all of our web UI, and I cover everything web, from JavaScript to .NET, but mainly we're going to focus on the .NET stuff today. But like Sam talked about earlier, all of our UI components on the web are powered by Kendo UI in some capacity. Kendo UI has the HTML, the CSS, and in most cases the JavaScript for powering all of our UI components. So remember, when you're using these tools, even if they're on the .NET side, they have Kendo UI underneath the hood powering everything. It's a wonderful platform for UI framework. And with Telerik UI for ASP.NET, you get even more stuff, including Kendo UI. You get Razor HTML helpers. You get tag helpers. There's Visual Studio support with scaffolding, which I'm going to show you some new scaffolding here soon. And you get the rich client-side APIs and everything that you would normally get just with Kendo UI itself. So remember that with Telerik UIs, you get even more stuff. And if you're a DevCraft subscriber, you have all of these options available. I'm going to glance over some of the JavaScript frameworks because we have another webinar next week that specifically covers all of the JavaScript frameworks. But we have added quite a few new components to the Kendo React library, such as the splitter, upload component. And these are all native React components that were built from the ground up, so there's no jQuery dependency on these. We also have some new components for our Angular library, our Kendo UI for Angular. We have a brand new rich text editor that is, again, a native Angular component. And then we have Kendo UI for Vue as well, so we're covering all the major JavaScript frameworks. And we have lots of new and updated things in there as well, such as the native grid. So a native Vue grid that has no jQuery whatsoever. I'm going to cover all of the Telerik UI for ASP.NET stuff. So this is ASP.NET MVC, Core, Ajax, and a new one. There's something in there about Blazor. We'll talk about that at the end. We've got some exciting demos to show. I'm going to start out with ASP.NET Ajax. We've got a couple new components for our Ajax library. So we've got our multi-column combo box. And we also have, sorry, I lost my notes here, thanks to GoToWebinar. There we go. We've got our multi-column combo box. So this is a drop-down box that came from a lot of customer feedback. They wanted to show something similar to a data grid inside of a drop-down box to be able to get more information about what exactly you were selecting. So that was added to our Ajax library. It also exists in all of our other libraries under the Telerik UI platform as well. And then our Rad Chat toolbar. So the Rad Chat widget got updated with a new toolbar that's customizable, where you can add custom interactions for a chat interface, things like adding photos and whatever you can dream up, you can add inside of that box. So cool new stuff for ASP.NET Ajax. And you're talking about this past and future type of a thing, and ASP.NET Ajax has been around for
forever.
Yeah,
but
for
it's
about
very
10 years. But point being, we're still updating and we're still adding brand new things, and there's a lot of people out there that still use it, love it, and they should be proud of the apps they're building with it. It's a very stable
And another
platform.
thing with web forms, I mean, you don't have to do web forms like you did 10 years back. It can be a modern web forms with Ajaxified calls and all of this brand new UI that you can throw in.
Absolutely. For all of the Telerik UI libraries powered by Kendo UI, we have the great ripple effect that you see in the material themes. Now you can just wrap a form with a ripple container tag. And any UI inputs that are clickable in that form, checkboxes, drop-downs, buttons, they all get that nice material UI ripple effect to them. So you get that right out of the box just by wrapping it with one simple tag. We also have a new scroll view component. And the scroll view component is customizable. You can do different types of layouts inside of it, and you can have these nice fluid interfaces where you can pan through different visual items. So that's brand new for all of those libraries as well. This is one of my favorite because I've spent a lot of time with this type of interface, a date range picker. So we have a new component where you can select a date range right in one UI component. So no more having to wire up two different date pickers together. And this is a common scenario. Say you have a report system you're building. You have to pick a date range for your reports to run. This is now just one click with your mouse, and it's a lot easier for developers to integrate things like validation and date ranges that you're allowed to select and all of those things that are involved. You don't have to wire all that up manually now. So this is a very exciting thing. And if you want to have a view for those type of things, you have the multi-view calendar control that allows you to display that kind of content. So I'm going to take a quick look at the date range picker just so you guys can see it in action. You can see this is at demos.telerik.com, and it's a very minimal control until you click on it. You get this nice drop down with a date range selection, and you can select the start, and then you can move your mouse across and select the ending date, and then all of those dates get returned back into a collection that you can decide how you want to handle those dates.
Yeah, I mean, just think of how many apps need a date range selection, like travel apps, I mean, you name it, it's all over. So it's now all one control.
This is something that I'm very happy to see come into the tool set. This is something that I would use all the time in building line of business applications. If you're scheduling any kind of, if you're in the hotel business, travel, any of those things, you're going to need a date range selection. So we're really happy to see that one come on. Next, I want to move on to Visual Studio support. We have official support Visual Studio 2019. So you're able to build all of your apps with Telerik UIs within Visual Studio 2019 preview. We also added new support for ASP.NET Core. So we have the brand new scaffolding built on the new system that ASP.NET Core uses for scaffolding. And we also have Razor Pages templates. So we're officially supporting Razor Pages now. And the scaffolding will also output Razor Pages. So the way that templating works in Visual Studio and ASP.NET Core is slightly different than it was before. So we'll jump over to Visual Studio 2019, take a quick look. Here I have a page that's been scaffolded out using the scaffolder, and you'll notice we're using tag helpers for this page. So this is a page I scaffolded for editing an invoice, and all of the inputs and all the components in here are using tag helpers. So you don't see a bunch of @ symbols throughout here. You don't see a bunch of razor. It's nice and easy to scan with the eye. Those templates are actually something that you download and manually place in your project. So you have a templates folder. What's nice about this system is I can have view generators for MVC views. I can have Razor page generators for Razor pages. And I can dive into these and I can actually edit the templates. So if I need to do some customization, I can actually do that and then generate all of my views with those customizations. So this is a new model of doing scaffolding. It's a little bit different than what you might have done in the older versions, ASP.NET MVC on Framework. So make sure you check the docs, learn how to get started, but once you do, you'll find it's a little more customizable than it was before.
I also like the fact that as a web developer, I have multiple options as to how I want to render, like Razor views or just straight up scaffolding, or should I do tag helpers? And no matter how you want to do it, with our UI, you can render it however you want.
Right, and you get all those things when you right-click on a folder and say Add Scaffolded Item. Nice. I won't go through all the steps here because the scaffolding can sometimes take a little bit, but you can get your MVC views. You can also choose Razor pages, whether you want to use Entity Framework or not, and it'll populate those values for you. So that's where you'll find those. The output for those templates uses our Kendo UI, our wrapped Kendo UI components, and you get the nice look and feel of Kendo UI. This is a page that I generated with the edit in list view scaffolding, and you get the nice buttons and everything, and you can choose whether you want to use a master page. I didn't on this one, so I can kind of port this anywhere I want to go with it, but you get the idea. This is the complete page that you get. It has all the bells and whistles, and it's ready to go for you to continue building your app that way. So I'm kind of trying to go through these a little fast because I've got some really fun stuff to talk about here in a moment, and I want to make sure I get to all those demos. But if you want to get all of the updates for ASP.NET Ajax and Core and MVC, check your Telerik control panel for updates. You will get prompted in Visual Studio for these sometimes. You also jump on your control panel, open it up, and just check all the boxes, hit install. That's what I like to do. Yep. Then you get everything just across all your products. You even get the checkboxes there for Visual Studio 2017 and 2019 preview, so it'll install to both versions of Visual Studio as well. So that's nice to have. If you're not a current customer and you don't already have the control panel, start a free trial at Telerik.com. You get 30 days to check everything out, kick the tires, see if you like it. Hopefully you do. I've been using it for about 10 years now, so I've been a customer for a long time.
Whoa.
So, what's this new thing? One more thing, and this is going to go on for a little bit because I've got a lot to cover. There's a lot of people, I'm sure, on the webinar that haven't heard about Blazor yet, so we're going to do a quick overview of what it is. But we're announcing today a early preview of Telerik UI for Blazor. So Blazor will explain in a minute how it's a brand new framework for .NET developers. But let me explain what the early preview means. We have a limited amount of controls, and we're going to be building this over the course of the year based on customer feedback. So right now it's a free trial download. That trial doesn't have an expiration date set yet, so we're not sure how long it's going to stay in trial mode, but we're inviting everybody to download it, check it out, give us feedback, and help us build what you want to see.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about this today.
Okay. Show us.
Make sure that you guys jump on Twitter and hit us with hashtag #HeyTelerik and Blazor if you have questions regarding Telerik UI for Blazor. So I'm proud to introduce the
This is
preview.
new and exciting.
Yeah, this is new stuff. So let's talk about what Blazor is. And first of all, Blazor is an experimental, so we're talking about a preview release atop of an experimental framework that uses C# and HTML, and it runs in the browser with no JavaScript. So the name Blazor comes from browser plus Razor is Blazor because it uses the Razor syntax markup to do all of the view logic and components inside of the application, but also uses C# for all of the business logic as well. So we don't have to have any JavaScript that we're interacting with as a C# developer. So this is really cool stuff. This means we can do full stack ASP.NET development, and we don't have to touch JavaScript. So what exactly is this? It is client-side C#. So in some case, or in most cases, you're actually running C# code inside of the browser, and it's doing this through WebAssembly. So WebAssembly is a web standard technology that uses a bytecode to run application logic.
Yeah, almost like bytecode. So it's compiling your stuff down into things that the browser can run natively.
Yes. So normally you would compile your JavaScript internally in the browser to this type of a bytecode, and WebAssembly is kind of externalizing that layer and saying, okay, provide your own bytecode, and you can do that with any language that can compile to WebAssembly. So you could have C++, Rust, Go, or in our case, C#.
Which is a much higher level language than Rust or C++. But
right. At the current time, we're not actually compiling our application to WebAssembly, but instead the mono runtime has been compiled to WebAssembly. So your application gets used by the mono runtime and inside of the browser. So we're actually shipping DLLs to the browser and running our code right there in the browser. It's doing that with WebAssembly. There's also a method of using SignalR, which I'll get into in just a moment. These are .NET standard applications, and again, it's experimental. Things will break, bugs will happen, things will fail, bleeding edge hurts. What it is not, let's make sure everybody understands that we're not using any plugins. This is all web standard technologies. It is not web forms again. It's very different than web forms, as you'll see. And this is not a transpiled thing. It's not actually turning anything into JavaScript at the end of the day. So now that we've got those things out of the way, let's talk about Blazor. It's one framework, but it has two modes and two different names. So it can get a little confusing at first, but Blazor, for all intents and purposes, is a single-page application framework that runs in the browser using WebAssembly on the client. There's also a mode called Razor Components, where the same framework is hosted on the server and runs as an executable. And instead of interacting with the browser through WebAssembly, instead it runs natively on the server and communicates with the browser over Signal R. So the browser just becomes a thin client at that point. And what Blazor is doing on the server is just interacting with changes. It has a DOM abstraction on the server, and it's keeping up with the browser and sending events and updates back and forth over a WebSocket pipeline.
So I don't think we are quite as ready for the client-side Blazor stuff yet. I think everyone's just kind of playing the waiting game with WebAssembly. The server-side Blazor stuff actually works really nice because over the wire, what's going across is with the shadow DOM is just very little pieces of bits and packages through
Now,
Signal.
I think the point you might be trying to get there is the Razor components part, the server-side hosted part, is the first part that will be supported by Microsoft. It's coming in ASP.NET 3.0. The WebAssembly stuff will remain experimental as they work through some of the shortcomings of WebAssembly, large file sizes and things like that, but it does work. And the code is portable from one scenario to another. So if I write a UI component for Razor components, I can also use it on WebAssembly.
Nice.
And the components that we have with Telerik UI for Blazor run in both.
Okay, sweet.
Okay, so let's take a look. Right. Again, if you have questions, hit us up at Hey Telerik, hashtag Blazor. Let's jump into Visual Studio and see this thing in action. I'm going to start real basic because I know there's quite a few people that haven't even seen Blazor before. So let's get started. This is a WebAssembly Blazor project. So this is going to run completely in the client. I'm going to start with what you get out of the box, and this is a counter component that comes with your File New Project template supplied by Microsoft. Okay, so I'm going to run this code, and I'll go back to that page in a sec so we can take a look at what the markup looks like. But I'm going to go to this counter page here, and I'm going to click this counter button.
So we never connect to the server, it's all client-side.
This is 100% client-side, and normally interactions like this would occur with JavaScript. We would click a button, JavaScript would tell the UI element to update, and it would keep track of the counter for us. If we go to the code for this, actually I'm going to close this Visual Studio, I'm not using that one anymore. Let's go back here. If I look at the code for this, you'll notice there's no JavaScript here. Okay, this is all C#. And this is all being run on the browser. So when I have this counter, it says current count, and I'm using Razor to set up a binding, and it says current count. That value is actually coming from the C# code down here. So I have a field backing this of current count. It initializes at 0. And then I have a button with an on-click event that is bound to increment count. And that binding says, when I click this button, increment that field by 1.
Sure. I think what's interesting is we're actually literally making a component like Angular or React does, except with HTML and Razor syntax and C#.
Absolutely. So what's really cool about this, even though it's a page, and you can see a page routing directive up here at the top, I can go back to my index page and I can say, give me that counter component here. And I can type in counter, and I'll get my counter component up at the top of the page.
Sure.
So I can reuse that logic as a component anywhere. But with Telerik UI for Blazor, we have pre-built things that you can just pull in your application. And on my index page here, you can see I have a tab strip. So I have a Kendo tab strip, and this is all static data. So I have a title and some weather content in there. So let's take a look at that home page, and there I've got my tab interface. So we have a nice clickable tab interface. But this is Blazor, so this is a new component model that is really cool and I can do lots of fun stuff with. So you might think with a UI component, I might need data binding and templating and all those things. In most cases, you do need those things, but there's also some other stuff that you can do with Blazor that makes it a little more interesting. So I'm going to take some data. So I've got some weather forecast data. This is just an array of objects in C# called weather forecast. They have a city, temperature, some other values. Let's make this a little more dynamic. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to delete one of these tabs out of my tab strip. So I have a tab strip component with child components underneath, and I'm going to say for each. And this is going to, I just double tabbed, so I've got my for each loop here, and I'm going to say for each item in weather forecasts.
There you go.
So I'm going to grab my array there, and I'm going to say forecast. So now I can iterate over this. I'm going to move this tab component up inside of that for loop. So now I can iterate over my data, and I can just generate these components. And in the title field, I'll say forecast dot, and I can say city here. And I'm going to go back to my browser. I'll just rerun this. I think this kind of demonstrates the idea. I should get 3 tabs now inside of that interface. Let's see if this refreshed. There's our 3 tabs. So I iterated over that component. The content stayed the same because I didn't put any dynamic content in there. I'm trying to keep things a little fast for the webinar. But we have our 3 tabs now.
Okay, so that tab is a Kendo UI for Blazor tab, right?
Yep.
Okay. What else do we got?
So we have a weather component, or sorry, a data grid component, which
Nice.
I'll show bound to some weather data here. Let me undo these changes just so if there's a compilation error, it doesn't affect my next demo here. So right now, I've got a page called Weather Forecast. And let me pull up my browser again. Let's do this fetch data component here, or page. If I click on fetch data, you see I've got this HTML table of weather data. Now this is coming from an HTTP endpoint. And what's happening in this view is I have my weather data coming from an HTTP GET JSON request.
Sure.
This is C#. It's actually using dependency injection, so we're using HTTP client, and we're injecting that here, and we are going out asynchronously pulling in weather forecasts. What's nice here is you see I'm saying I'm getting an array of weather forecasts. I'm not saying get some JSON, do some transformation, do all that stuff. Right. I'm just grabbing it, throwing it in some .NET objects, and then I'm able to work with it. So when the page loads, I'm going to grab those, and it's going to stash those in an array named forecasts. Then I can for each over them build up this table manually. This is a kind of building raw HTML. I have a better solution for this. So we have the Telerik UI for Blazor data grid. Yep. So in here, and again, we use the Kendo namespace because there's some borrowed assets for HTML and CSS in there, but there is no JavaScript or jQuery dependency. So I can say Kendo grid for a component, and then I just need to tell it what the columns are. So I can come in here and create some space, and then I'm going to kind of control click here, and I can say Kendo grid column, and then I can specify the field. And I'm going to use a C# trick because I'm not in JavaScript, I'm in C#, so I can use some C# tricks in here. And I'm going to say name of. So I'm going to use the name of operator here, and then I'll just use my name, my object name in here. So I can say weather forecast. And now I've kind of generated all of those components that I need. I just need to be a little more specific now on what type of weather forecast they are. So I can say, I want this to be weather forecast.city, and then I can say weather forecast.date. Notice I'm getting IntelliSense for all of these things. Maybe a little too helpful there. It's auto-deleting some things on me. There we go. Date. I can say temperature, and we'll go ahead and do summary here. And I'm missing a slash here, so I'm just going to switch to a branch where that code is completed properly.
So while you're doing that, how many components are we starting off with in Telerik UI for Blazor?
We have two. We have the data grid, and we have the tab set. And this thing is not helping me any. So I'm going to switch over to another demo. Might come back to that one in a sec, but let me show you another version of it running on SignalR. So we've got our SignalR version of it. So everything's running on the server, but it's the same set of demos. You will notice that there's one small difference between the WebAssembly version and the SignalR version, where before we were using a HTTP client to go get our data. But now, since we're already on the server, we don't need to do that. We can do it within Entity Framework, directly on the server. So we can inject a service. So we're in here, we're injecting our Northwind database context. And where we were calling out to an HTTP request before, we can now grab that directly from our database. So let's go ahead and run this one. So when this spins up, I have full debugging and everything. That's one of the shortcomings of WebAssembly right now, is we don't have debugging.
On the client side.
Yeah, so this is why we suggest that folks try the components in the server-side version first, because they do have interactive debugging and everything to help you kind of get started. You run into an error in the WebAssembly portion of this, and there's no way to really figure out what you did wrong. With the Razor components or Blazor running on the server, you do get all that. So this application is going to spin up. We're binding directly to the Northwind database, pulling in data. We're also doing some templating on that data. So the grid has templating. So let's look at our fetch data.
So you get all of the nice things that you expect from a full-featured Kendo UI grid, like sorting, filtering, binding, all of that good stuff.
Filtering's not in there yet, it's planned.
Yep.
We do have sorting, so I can click on unit price here, and you can see we have sorting. We have paging, so we have the full ability to page. And we can easily set these values inside of the component by setting the number of pages we'd like to see, whether we'd like to enable or disable sorting. And what we've also got in this early preview is I can come into, let's do something up here at the top so it's easy to find. You can see I've already done one here. If I come into unit price and I double click on it, I get an editing cell. So I can come in, let's set this to all 7s, just to give us an example that we can come back and look at. I'm going to hit Save Changes. I'm going to refresh the page just to prove that we've actually gone to the database and made that right. The code for all of that editing, if I go back to my component and scroll down, this is all the logic for the ability to save those changes.
So it knows your context and it knows how to save it.
It's still aware of the DB context. All I gotta do is call Save Changes. So what we're missing is that whole setting up DTOs, data transfer objects, and going from our objects in C# to JavaScript, and then interacting on the client, and then back from JavaScript into C# objects, serializing, deserializing, auto mapper, all those things, don't need all that.
Okay. All right, so we got a lot more things to show, but what I'm hearing is if you are a .NET developer doing web stuff, and if you don't want to write JavaScript, Blazor is the thing for you, and we have UI components in preview mode, so you can try them out right now. Anything else you got before I switch over?
Yeah, let me just talk about how they can find out more about this. Some of the demos kind of were being a little flaky. The machine's not running at full speed because of GoToWebinar or whatever's going on here. So the IntelliSense and stuff was a little laggy. So first of all, if you want to get the bits and play with them yourself, go to blogs.telerik.com. We have a big post on it with demos that you can copy-paste into your projects. The title of the post is Introducing Telerik UI for Blazor Early Preview. If you find that, it has everything you need to know on getting the bits and getting started. You can also check your Telerik NuGet feed for the NuGet package. It is in there and it's ready to go, so you can just install it right from the NuGet Package Manager. And also next Friday, after the Kendo UI webinar, and every Friday, I have a live Twitch show. So if you come on, I'll do all the demos in grave detail on the Twitch show next week. So you can see where the couple little demo fails were there. We'll do those in detail and show what's actually happening. So we'll have a lot more time. We'll have an hour or more to spend on those specific demos.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so a lot of cool things on ASP.NET Stack, web forms, MVC, core, choose however you want to build your web application, and if you want to stay on the bleeding edge, look at Blazor, because I think that's the future for .NET. All right, so let me switch over and show you my screen. Okay. All right, let's switch gears. So we got about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about the rest of the story, because again, it's not just web, it's also mobile, it's also desktop, and it's also productivity. So let's take a look as to what we can do. On the mobile front, we have Xamarin, which I think is, I mean, the ship has sailed. It clearly democratizes .NET mobile development. We can take our code to lots of different places with Xamarin Forms now. It is truly native apps that you're building that are also cross-platform. So the story keeps getting better and better. As I say all the time, there are two approaches of building Xamarin apps. One is Xamarin Native, which is Xamarin iOS or Android, or Xamarin Forms, which is the abstraction where you don't have to write iOS or Android at all. You can all do it through XAML. It's a shared user interface. And this is something I'm actually much more fond of, but again, at the same time, if you want to build native iOS or Android, I mean, go for it. But however you want to do it, we want to make sure we have the top-notch UI control so you can ship your apps faster. That's in our UI for Xamarin control package. And there's a lot of love that we put into this suite. This is very near and dear to my heart. This is something we have worked on a lot. So native controls for iOS or Android, cross-platform wrappers with Xamarin Forms. The getting started experience, like how you integrate our controls, we have really reworked that. So you bring in our DLLs through a NuGet package, you just drop it in, or you have getting started VS templates, all of the common screen templates that you need for your authentication, credit card payments, whatever. We have all of those things built in, and they're all automatically integrated. You don't have to take my word for it. You can check out some of the sample stores, the apps that we have in the stores. And our goal is to make the best possible Xamarin UI for all of you guys. So what have we been up to in the R1 release? We have several new controls coming. This one's highly requested, the PDF viewer, because again, mobile apps often deal with PDF controls, or PDF reports, and we want to be able to show them nicely. So here is our first take on a PDF viewer. We will keep iterating on this. It shows you PDFs, and it makes it really nice UX with single or continuous scrolling, and it supports a lot of different types of elements inside of your PDF. Pop-up controls. So again, these are very heavily used controls in the mobile space, modal or non-modal, context menus, any types of alerts and permissions, whatever you need to ask the user. It's just nice to show, be able to show it in a pop-up. So I'll show you what that looks like. Lots of different types of animations and a big layer of APIs built into this. Docking layout, so you can put your containers and place your content however you want, and it is also adaptive as the screen rotates, or you get different screen sizes. Lots of different preset docking layouts, but you can also build your own. Appointments in Calendar. Again, calendars are really hard to do, especially for iOS and Android. We want to preserve that native look and feel, but we now have a way of setting up appointments in your apps. So recurring appointments, color coding appointments, and a big API canvas to kind of set it all up, and a nice intuitive UX. There are lots of other things that we did, performance improvements all throughout. The list view, which is again one of the heaviest used controls for most mobile apps, that gets a header and footer, so you can set a header and footer and scroll the content around it. The autocomplete view, so as you type, you get suggestions, single or multiple, and that's kind of out in the official bits now, because we did a preview last release, and now it's out. Localization, so you should be able to localize your strings however you want for whatever language and locale you want to support. Globalization, so if you have dates and numbers and currencies, we can kind of look at the phone's country and kind of render things appropriately. So all of those things are kind of built into the UI for Xamarin Suite. Let me show you a quick demo of what this looks like. So if you head out to Telerik.com, and if you get to the Xamarin UI for Xamarin page, you can see all of the things we built. That's our page for all the things that are live in R1 2019. Again, if you go to the Xamarin page, you will get the installers, or even if you do the trials, you can see the bits that I'm showing you. So these are the same apps that you can download from the iOS, Android, and Windows stores. So this one here is our QSF application. Let me pull this up real quick. So you can see some of these new controls in action. And this is just the iOS side of it. It's going to pull up my iPhone simulators in just a second. And I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is like code sharing between mobile, desktop, and web. And with .NET Standard and us sharing frameworks, it just helps reusability of your code everywhere. So here is my iPhone simulator as soon as it comes up. So here's the app that you can actually download and play with it on your iOS and Android devices. We actually also give you the code so you can see how we are rendering these things. So here's the PDF viewer. It is a PDF viewer, so it's a real nice scrolling experience. I can continue scroll or I can just page through, and it shows most of the elements that you expect in a PDF viewer. So going back, let's look at the pop-up control. This one is really nice. Again, if you have a context menu like this, you can kind of have that as a container, so you can set up your context menus. This one here is our tree view, which works nicely. Then let's move on to a modal view. So if you have things that you just want to capture the user's attention, these two people that I'm selecting send invites, so that's the modal pop-up. So you can control these things with just a flag, whether it's modal or non-modal. And lots of configuration options across all of these things. So you can see for the pop-up control, where does it show up, how does it animate, and all of those things, horizontal or vertical offsets, you can control all of those things pretty nicely. So that's the pop-up. Let's see, maybe one more thing I want to show you. This is the dock layout. So here is the dock, and you can see the top, left, right navigation. You can set up your content exactly how you want. If I rotate my phone, you notice how it's nicely keeping the layouts, and it's honoring the docks. So that's just a quick look at some of the newer controls. Again, we did a lot of different things all across UI for Xamarin, so take a look. If I may show you the code real quick, I'm going to not spend too much time, but this is the code that you can actually download with the installers or with the trials as well. We have the namespaces nicely separated out, so if you're not using all of our UI controls, just get the namespaces that you need for your pages. So here's the RAD PDF viewer toolbar. Notice how it has a binding, so you don't have to actually give it a PDF, and you can bind it to it. Here is our PDF source, and I'm just getting a file from my file system and handing over the PDF to the viewer, and it'll work just fine with binding. Here is our pop-up control. Notice how I can set up different things here. This is my pop-up content. This is the context menu that you saw. I can set it up however I want. It's a placeholder. I can have a stack, I can have a grid, and then at the end of the day, I can simply point to that template to just say, go ahead and render that particular pop-up control. So here's the RAD pop-up, and I'm simply binding it, and I'm giving it the template that I gave it. That's the content template, and I'm setting it to the pop-up content that I did. So pretty easy to set these things up. Here is another look at the dock, which is the RAD dock layout, and you can set it up with grids, and you can give it positions, you can give it colors, and again, it's a container control. So you can set it up however you want. And again, these things the docks are also bindable, so you don't have to actually give it. You can kind of do an MVVM type pattern with it. Okay, so let me switch gears because again, I have a few more things that I want to show you. So let's go back to the deck and let's talk about some more things. So you saw UI for Xamarin, again, lots of love being put into it. Our goal is to enable all of you .NET developers to be able to ship apps for iOS, Android, and other platforms and be able to do it as performant and as quickly as you can. So take a look at that. Building for desktop. So legacy apps, again, let's bring them over, modernize them for the new generation. So we're not calling them legacy apps anymore. You see that .NET Core is the present today, and that's what lets you build web and cloud apps. The future, and this is going to come sometime this year, is .NET Core 3. And with that, we get a lot more things like IoT and AI, but the biggest thing is we are bringing .NET Core love back into the desktop. So your desktop applications, WPF and WinForms, can now share the love that .NET Core 3 brings, side-by-side .NET frameworks, easy updates, and then all the new APIs that you're going to gain. With us, it's always been UI for WPF and WinForms. These are two of our very, very popular suites that we pour a lot of love into it, 100+ controls in both of these things. The big announcement is it works with .NET Core 3. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing too.
Yeah, so again, preview bits for .NET Core 3, but it all works. So we wrote up a big blog post on blogs.telerik.com. I can show you that real quick if I may. Let's see, PowerPoint. And right here, we showed you exactly how to do WinForms and WPF on .NET Core 3. We are actually shipping slightly different versions of the DLLs for our Telerik bits, which can live side by side, and they work on .NET Core 3. So take a look at this and see how your WPF and WinForms control can be brought over and modernized for this next generation. Okay, so that's just the big news. Let's move on with some of the other things we did in WPF and WinForms. And you can see us how we are continuing the investments and making sure desktop development is a first-class citizen. Navigation view is new in WPF, so classic hamburger menu. Now you can bring it to the desktop. Everything that you expect with it, it's customizable, it does data binding, it has keyboard support, and all of that just works. Diagram enhancements, if you're doing rad diagrams, different types of flowcharts, we enhanced how you do routing and how the blocks are connected to each other and how you draw so they don't overlap and intersect. And we also give you a ribbon UI, which is really hard to create by hand. So now it's just integrated in the VS Toolbox, drag and drop, and you can have a ribbon for your WPF apps. If you're using the spreadsheet control, we let you embed different types of charts and graphs inside the spreadsheet, not just the charts and graphs by themselves. And you can import and export these charts. There's a new hyperlink control. The multi-column combo box that's for the web, it's now for desktop as well. Same exact idea of choosing multiple things in a grid layout. It just works. Moving on to WinForms. WinForms gets a lot of love as well. There is a brand new tabbed form, which I'm a huge fan of because it kind of brings it to modern kind of web browser look and feel. It is tabs, but it's nicely done. These are container controls. You can pin, you can drag and drop tabs, and it just works with design time support. Time span control, this is a way for you to kind of choose the duration of hours and minutes and just makes it a really nice UX. And it has RTL support. Bookmarks in PDF Viewer. There's a new font drop-down list that I'll show you real quick. We have some new themes, and there's a new button text box control. So let's take a quick look, and I'm going to spin up my VM real quick. I am on a Mac today, so Parallels actually works fairly nice. And again, these are apps that I'm going to show you. They are part of the installer. You can also just download and install and play with them. They're also in the Windows 10 store, so if you can just take a look and see how they're working. And we also give you the code. The app actually shows you how we render some of these things that I'm going to show you in WPF and WinForms. All right, so my Windows is spinning up fairly quickly. Well done, Windows. All right, so here we go with WPF. All right, so this is the R1 2019 app. It's refreshed. Navigation view, like I said, it is a tab, but it's got a lot of features. So you can place whatever you want in it, and it also follows some of the themes. So if I switch it to a material theme, you can see how it kind of changes up. And if I squish this, you can see how it's kind of adaptable. It kind of changes what the tab shows based on how much space it has. And again, if you click on the code, it'll show you exactly how we are rendering these things with XAML and C#. So moving on, let's see, this is the grid view. Diagram UI, it's going to take a second to download. Let's see. Okay, so that's the new ribbon. Again, it works, and you can put whatever settings, whatever diagrams, controls, and elements that you want inside of that ribbon UI. Again, it follows the theme. This is a hyperlink button, a simple button, but we never were able to put a hyperlink on it. Now we can. And then multi-column group box, that kind of looks exactly how it looked like on the web. So you get almost like a grid. You can sort and filter through. And these things are very customizable. So I can move over to the configurator. You can see how I can have a single selection mode, or I can make it a multiple selection. And then I can go in here and I can choose 1, 2, and you get the point. So again, lots of love going into WPF. Modernize your WPF apps so they work nicely with .NET Core 3 now. Let's take a quick look at WinForms. And I'm running out of time, but I need 5 more minutes and I can show you all of the new things. So here's the new tab form. This is something I'm actually very fond of, because if I launch this, you'll see that we are rendering tabs. This is a WPF, or I'm sorry, this is the WinForms app, but it looks like a browser. And it, again, if you look at the Crystal Mac-inspired looks, you see the Mac, the close and the open and the minimize buttons. So again, use these tabs to hold your content and present different views of your application. It's really nice. This is the font drop-down picker that I was talking about. It actually looks into all of the installed fonts that you have on your machine, gives you a choice, and your users a choice of how they want to see their content. So that's the real quick with the WinForms and WPF. Let's switch back because I got more things to show you. Let's talk about the rest of the story on how developers are productive. We continue maintaining UI for UWP. We talked about .NET Foundation. This is part of the .NET Foundation, and we keep pouring love into it. It's open source. It's free. We can give you some support. But again, if you're building UWP apps, UWP is going places. Your XAML and C# investments are in good hands. And we keep making more and more controls that are XAML and C# for Xamarin and for UWP. Moving on to reporting. Reporting is a big part of enterprise software dev. So Telerik Reporting Server, they both get some love. The big news is we can now render these reports on .NET Core 2.0, which means we can take our reports to Linux and Mac, and it just runs everywhere. Just available to a bigger, wider audience for you, the developer. We have some updates to the declarative reporting, so you can render things easier. We also do localization, so strings and any kind of spacing and positioning. It's not just the strings. They can all be localized to whatever country and the locale that your computers are. Improved user experience all throughout, continuous and page scrolling of all of your reports. Report server, this is your admin view of hosting the reports and making sure you can deliver these reports across multiple form factors to your users. So this gets a lot of love as well. The big thing is report scheduling. This is where you can generate reports on a schedule. You can deliver them to your users. These are done through agents. And essentially, we are scaling those agents so you can have any number of agents that can report or that can deliver these reports, and you can do some load balancing. It's essentially an ASP.NET application, so you can do some load balancing as to how we can schedule these reports when they get generated and delivered to your users. Again, it gets the same amount of love that Telerik Reporting does. Again, it's powered by Telerik Reporting, so all of the benefits that you get, localization, improved report viewer, you get all of those things in the Telerik Report server. Developer productivity. The big news is, well, two newses. So one is Fiddler. Telerik Fiddler is something that's very, very popular for web and mobile developers. Again, if you can look at your traffic for Android and iOS through Telerik Fiddler, very, very popular for desktop and mobile development. But the big news is we now have Fiddler working on .NET Core, which means we can take it to places. So Fiddler, it's now available for Linux and Mac. So this is the future of Fiddler. It's Fiddler everywhere. If I can step out real quick and show you this, this is Fiddler on a Mac. And again, it's very useful for mobile dev and web development as well. So this is Fiddler, and it should automatically set my proxy. If I pull up any high traffic website here, thanks to Ed and his modern web, this is CNN, so you'll see how there are like, it's not capturing yet, but you'll see how there are like 300 requests just to load up a single web page. So again, Fiddler works for Mac and Linux. It's not capturing my proxy because I'm on a different firewall, but again, it works. Again, all of the HTTPS capturing of the traffic, fiddling with it and recording it, it all works for Linux and Mac. So that's the big news with Fiddler. Moving on to another thing that's very helpful for .NET developers, that's mocking. Because again, when you're building apps, you do not always have your data structures and all of the different layers. The big news is now it runs on .NET Core. So you can have your .NET objects mocked nicely, and it works for desktop, web, and mobile. Nicely integrated into VS 2019, like you were showing, all of the things that 2019 gives you, code coverage, IntelliTrace, trace, they all just work. And we are also giving you a new console look into running your tests through command line. So now they can be integrated into your CI/CD pipelines. Nice. So you can run your tests without actually touching Visual Studio. It can all be automated through the console and the command line.
Yeah, there was actually a conversation going on Twitter yesterday about support for ASP.NET Core, or sorry, for .NET Core with Telerik DevCraft. So it's nice to see that we've been able to announce that.
Yep. All right, so we talked about a lot of different things, and I think we are completely out of time. But please keep your questions coming on Hey Telerik on Twitter, so Ed and me can jump off this call and we can answer all of those things on the Q&A panel and also on Twitter. Hopefully our support folks have been answering your questions, but again, we will keep the conversation going. So overall, I think the point is R1 2019 was a big release, and we are trying to set the tone for the year. So we are sharing the love across web, desktop, and mobile. You can see that if you are looking at the future, what's next with .NET? You have Blazor, which is all of the new stuff with WebAssembly and server-side Blazor. That's future and cutting edge, but also the past. We're not leaving that behind with legacy apps, with desktop apps. We are bringing the .NET Core 3 love. We are working with VS 2019. So again, build modern apps, use the latest and greatest from Microsoft, and we are always here to give you the best possible UI for all of your apps.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, it was a lot in 1 hour. Hopefully this is worth your time. If you're already using our bits, thank you. And if you're new to Telerik, hopefully we're able to show you just how much we do for developer productivity across our line. So that's it from us. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Please ping either me or Ed anytime you want.
And join us next week for more web with Kendo UI, Vue, React, and jQuery.
And Angular.
And Angular.
Yeah.
And then after that, jump over to Twitch, and we'll talk about Blazor some more.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you next time.